Welcome to this first week of the new year. I was telling kids in teen time, but also in the congregations I'm in, this is the time of the year I usually come in with New Year's horns and crowns and all sorts of stuff. And it really kind of unsettles people who've been in church for a very long time because past generations haven't been taught that this is our new year. But it is. This is our New Year's Sunday. So celebrate that a little bit. And we celebrate that by starting this period of waiting, Advent. Advent means coming. So we're waiting for the coming of Jesus. And the very first scripture we're looking at is Luke, some of his apocryphal writing. And one of the things that drives me absolutely bonkers about this scripture is that 2 weeks ago we were reading Mark, and it says, don't look for the signs, wars and famines, everything else, they're going to happen anyway. They don't mean anything. Don't look at them as interpretations or signs. And now here we have Luke a couple of weeks later. Look at the signs. The signs are everywhere. You can see the signs. As a preacher, it's kind of frustrating because the Gospels do not harmonize the same way that people like to think they do. So now we're in the year of Luke. We just left the year of Mark. So what does that mean for us as people who are journeying through the Gospel of Luke? Well, it means a couple of things. First of all, where Mark was written before the fall of the temple in the year 70 CE, where there might have been rumors. Quite honestly, he might have been telling people not to look for the signs because he knew the rumbling in society and he was trying to get them to calm down. Luke doesn't have that problem because Luke is writing about 80 or 90, so about 10, 15, 20 years after the destruction of the temple. So he's already seen or heard of all of this uproar that has happened. He's not trying to keep the people calm. He's just talking about a matter of history. It happened. The Hebrew people were kicked out of Jerusalem. The temple that they knew and loved was gone. Entire generations now would have no place to worship or to come together in pilgrimage the way their grandparents and parents might have. So it was a time of turmoil and a time of absolute despondency for a lot of people who believed the faith, because what we know as Judaism had not yet been created. It was emerging. The Pharisees had carried on the tradition, and that will eventually become Judaism. But the Hebrew people aren't there yet. They just know that their center of worship, their cultural core, has been destroyed. And they've now been sent throughout the Roman Empire and not allowed to be back in Jerusalem. So the turmoil was real. The crisis was real. The signs everywhere were real. And they believed the Messiah was coming. So why didn't the Messiah stop this? What was the Messiah waiting for? Well, a lot of questions going on. And then we have Luke coming in with perhaps the most beautiful series of stories about who the Messiah is and what the Messiah is going to do. And we're going to be looking at those over the next number of weeks. But first off, the thing that Luke tells us, beyond anything, is hope. A friend of mine a number of months ago asked me, what is the one thing I wish people understood about apocryphal literature? The one thing, honestly, I wish people understood is it's not a book of destruction. It's a book of hope. Because the Hebrew people, all the peoples who at the time were either writing the Bible or reading the Bible in its earliest phases for the Christian community, they were all under oppression. There was never a point when any of them had political autonomy, democracy, say over their government, nothing. These were people under siege, but there was hope there, and that's what apocryphal literature brought to them. And we see that in Luke's writing today, because he's saying, when all of this stuff is happening, look up. The temptation, of course, is to cower and hide and avoid and stay out of the way. And oftentimes, if destruction is happening to those people over there, we're going that way because we don't want to be caught up in it. And Luke's saying, no, you don't do that. Stand your ground and look up, because everywhere that's happening, there are signs of God coming. Mr. Rogers, and that's a show I never watched as a kid, but Mr. Rogers is famously quoted as saying, look for the helpers. Whenever there's a crisis, look for the helpers. And that's a message that we can still use today. And we can use that to interpret Luke as well. Because when Luke is talking about what is happening around, all of these signs, he's talking about what is to come, what is possible, what is around, what God's world will be like. And he uses the metaphor of a fig tree. Luke is really good about parables. In fact, most parables are found in Luke. And he tells them something really, really simple. Look at the fig tree. You can see in spring when the leaves pop, you know something is coming. But it's a sign of hope. And that's the difference. You don't look at wars to really understand what's going on. You look at spring growth and you look at rivers running. And I mean, we've got to look at what the environmental damage is and certainly take our share of responsibility and fix that. But that's not God's sign. That's stuff that we did to ourselves. So the nature and the spirit are not synonymous. They're not the same thing. Nature is kind of fighting back against us, but God is with us in that. Who are the helpers? Who are the people trying to save the environment? Those are the signs we should be looking for. This hope. Look up. God is coming. Christ is coming amidst us, among everybody who's here. The thing with Christianity is it's a very challenging religion. It's very simple, but it's very challenging. We are not given a series of go do these prayers and kneel now, stand up, do this, do that. Not even rituals. We created them because humans need them. We need that structure to hang our faith on. But Christianity never asked us to do that. What Christianity asked us to do was change the world. Jesus Christ was the greatest social reformer of the world. He was the hope. And this time of year, we're starting to name that hope again, to bring it up, to focus on that. We're not talking about Jesus for the next couple of weeks, really. We're talking about the people that prepared the way. We're talking about John the Baptist. We're talking about Elizabeth and Zechariah. We're talking about Joseph and Mary, the people who set the stage, the people who created this world where the child Jesus was going to be raised and where he would be celebrated and acknowledged and taught and, probably disciplined more than once. But created that place where the Lord could grow in human form to be among us. But we're not there yet. We're still in the hope of the coming God, the one who is going to make a difference, the one who is challenging us to step up and put our faith into action. The thing with Luke is it's the social justice gospel. People used to think that Luke was a doctor simply because all of the stories of healing in the Gospel of Luke. We've since realized that Luke really isn't a doctor. He's more of a historian. He tells a story. He sets the stage. He puts time in context. Who was in reign? Who was in power at the time when certain things happened? So we can look back, and there can be some parallels drawn with what's going on politically and socially at the time when Jesus was alive. And the other really interesting thing about Luke is he always has a story about men and a story about women. Always. They are going through. Every parable has male focus and a female focus. The social justice that Luke gives is the action of our faith. In Matthew, we're supposed to sit back and do that internal work of making ourselves ready to receive. Mark is kind of like quick moving, got to get on, got to get this action, got to get the message out, keep going, get involved, do things, don't tell the secret till it's wordy, and then blow the top off this baby. Luke is very, very different. Luke is very matter of fact. Whether we know about Jesus or not is almost immaterial in Luke. He is going forward with how we can actively change the world and how we do it through story and how we do it through action and how Jesus can point out where this change is coming. That's the hope that's ultimately in the Gospels of Jesus being in the world. And right now, we are getting ready. We are in the driver's seat. We are getting ready to pull out for this year-long journey of Luke, where we are focusing on Jesus coming and changing the world. Those are the signs, really, that Luke is talking about. Not concentrating on famine and war and all that kind of stuff, because that's always with us. But where is the hope? Follow the hope, and that's where you're going to find Christ this Advent season and throughout the rest of our year.